May I have your attention, please? At this time, make sure that you turn off your cell phones. After the Pledge of Allegiance, there will be citizens' comments.
This meeting is called to order. This is Friday, February the 19th, 2016, 7 p.m. Please stand for the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Thank you. Now to establish a quorum, Councilman Tejada, Councilman Ortiz, and Councilman Miller is back there. We do have a quorum. Remain standing for the U.S. Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, we will entertain citizen comments. And Mr. Hug, you will take the time on these.
And this is for a general citizens comment period, just like any other meeting. So anything related to this or not can be spoken of at this time.
I'm sorry, what was your last statement? One more time, anything what?
Anything, once we get into the public hearing, I'll announce some rules for the comments period, but for right now, this is the general citizens comments period.
Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Rob Erickson. I live at 342 Shannon Ridge Drive. I moved here to Floresville on September of 2014. Before then, I spent the last 23 years in the Army. My last assignment was Fort Wainwright, Alaska, where I was the deputy commander for the garrison. During that time frame, I became very well nuanced in the functions of city management and, more importantly, the operation of a power plant. Now, what I've come here to ask is that we enter into discussion next week, a presentation that I'd like to have with regards to the utilities and the power cost recovery factor and how it's risen. More importantly, I would like to ask a question as to why there is no rebate program for other alternatives within the county in terms of energy. And that I believe that Phelps, along with CPS, even though they are subcomponents, they operate as a monopoly that is unregulated. And I would like to demonstrate that, everybody. And I believe that the costs associated with that is borne on the shoulders of its citizens. And this is due to mismanagement within Phelps. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Let me ask, before I go up there, are we going to have a limit on the other comments?
Also 5 minutes, I believe, right, Mr. Hood?
Yes, it'll be 5 minutes and limited in scope to the allegations and responses.
Before we speak or after?
Excuse me?
Before the council speaks or after?
After the council speaks, the citizens will get a chance to comment.
Let me make mine now, okay?
Who are you? Because the last time you didn't announce yourself either.
I know. My bad, my bad.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Mayor, council,
Who are you again?
and fellow citizens, I'm addressing you first.
Mr. Hood.
I'm Fred Gonzalez and I live in Floresville. I'm never ashamed to say that.
Amen.
First, I'm going to talk about the petitions rejected for cause. The following numbers and reasons were provided by the city secretary at the 11th February council meeting. The total 59, not registered to vote 25, live outside city limits 16, suspended 6, signed petition more than once 12. And that last item kind of bothers me because that's clearly unethical. We all know the principle of one person, one vote. Now let me talk about the petition itself. I don't know any other way to say this, but as a Floresville citizen, I must say it. I have followed this petition situation closely in council meetings and elsewhere, as well as a local paper. Frankly, I am dismayed by the actions and behavior of those who claim they love this great city of ours and that they're doing it for the welfare of our town. I'm talking about the constant blitz of loud shouting, put-downs, and insults, particularly at council meetings. Insults such as liars, cowards, comparing you to tyrants, i.e. Noriega, quoting scriptural and other related sayings to deride you, you name it. This is a total lack of respect for the office of those who are appointed/elected according to our charter, and also a lack of respect for our chambers. A good number of these folks are not even your constituents. And that's not bad, it's just a fact. This ongoing name-calling and disrespect to me should stop. We should be better than that. Just what is it that you folks did that rises to the level of having to go through all of this? We should read the charges and answer that for ourselves. It would have been nice if all of these signers had done that. Excuse me for taking time, but at my age, I need to read. I can't remember things anymore. One would find, and I'm talking about reading the charges, that the only pertinent, not valid necessarily charge is the allegation that money spent in the council's exercising of their responsibility, Charter Sections 302 and 303, to ensure that each member of the city council shall be a resident of the city of Floresville, was unbudgeted. That was the charge, unbudgeted. As I understand, while these expenditures may not have been specifically anticipated, they were not above and beyond the FY 2015 and 2016 budget, nor do they have any relation to infrastructure or public safety matters. They were identified as legal expenses and assigned, as I understand, to the fund titled Contractual Legal Fees, where they belong, and they did not deplete the fund. The other so-called charges are either suppositions or postulations. For example, what specifically is required by the charter, or the continuing authorizations of expenditures not related to infrastructure or public safety above and beyond the approved FY 2015-2016 budget. On the third one, again, specifically, what are these continuing non-budgeted expenditures that would deplete the reserve funds? Where is the specific substance and proof of these allegations? Finally, it's my understanding that there are no specific provisions in state law for recalls. Basically then, the charter is the go-to provisions. These provisions serve to ensure that citizens have an avenue for proper removal of elected officials who misperform at a certain level. By the same token, they serve to protect those accused of such. Yet the petitioners are so gung-ho in removing you folks, they want to ignore the charter, deprive you of an opportunity to defend yourself.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
That's 5 minutes.
I'm sorry.
That's 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'll say just follow the charter. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Cindy Cranston. I am a resident of the city of Floresville. And just to answer, Mr. Gonzalez said something that I just want to say. Mr. Gonzalez, up until this point, I didn't believe the evidence either. I had the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Miller this week. I think it is high time that, once again, all of you, including Mr. Miller, stop worrying about what's legal and start doing what's right. And what I mean by that is stop worrying about what you can get away with and start doing what's right. These people want you to answer for what you've done. I'm so glad you're here for this meeting today. And if the majority of the people or the people want a recall and they went through the steps to do a recall, I mean, it's a yes or a no on the ballot. If you can get 7,000 people to vote, only 500 of them have already said their yes. It needs to be put on the ballot. I am not somebody who signed the recall petition because I didn't know the complete facts of the recall, so I wouldn't sign it. My husband's not someone who signed it either. But at this point, I think it needs to be put on a ballot. People need to decide for themselves in May, yes or no, and we need to move forward from here. Thank you.
Anyone else? If there are no other general comments, I'll turn it over to Mr. Huggs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, we're here today to conduct the public hearing that's required under section 6.04 of the charter. That charter provision provides that at said public hearing, the person whose removal is sought may present facts and witnesses pertinent to the charges in the recall petition. There's no other specific provisions in the charter, there's no other procedural things, so that's all we have to go off of here. So what we have done is try to draft a procedural method to handle this public hearing. What we will do is, in a minute, I'll read the charges that are levied against the three members of City Council that are sitting up there. After that, each council member will be granted the ability to respond to the charges, and the charter allows for them to call witnesses, present facts. That's up to each individual member to decide how they would like to conduct their statement of their case. Following that, we'll open it up to public hearing, or public comments, since this is a public hearing. Those comments will be restricted to the charges that are brought in the recall petition, as well as what is stated by the City Council in their defense. This isn't a trial. This isn't a question and answer period. It's to allow the citizens to make a comment based upon what they hear. After that point, the City Council members will be granted a chance at their discretion to respond to anything that the individuals have said at the end of the entire citizen comment period, not citizen by citizen. Following that, we will close the hearing and move forward. I will be keeping the time for the 5-minute citizens comments, and that's the procedure that we've had established here. So at this time, I would like to allow the City Council, or the three members of City Council who are subject to the recall petition, to state their case and present whatever facts and evidence that they would like to do so. Whatever order that y'all have decided is fine. There's no specific 1, 2, 3 or anything.
Do you want to read the petition again?
Yeah. So the allegations are on the grounds of seeking removal on the grounds of incompetence, misconduct, or malfeasance in office, a petition for the recall of the above-named mayor and council members for the specific acts and omissions while in office. The authorization of expenditures above and beyond the approved fiscal year 2015-2016 budget prior to public disclosure and approval of the City Council at the 7:00 p.m. November 12, 2015 regular City Council meeting in council chambers of the City of Floresville, and the continued authorization of expenditures not related to infrastructure or public safety above and beyond the approved fiscal year 2015-2016 budget. These non-budgeted expenditures will continue to deplete the reserve funds established and required by the City of Floresville's insolvency plan and may negatively impact the financial stability and ability of the City of Floresville to fund much-needed future infrastructure and public safety projects. And at this time, this is your opportunity to respond to those specific allegations contained therein.
Madam Mayor, I'll go first.
You go first.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I, Juan Ortiz, City Councilman, maintain that I have done nothing wrong as the recall petition against Madam Castillo, Councilman Tejada, and myself proposes. On the issue named in the petition, I have this to say. We took action to remove Councilman Miller because he sincerely believed that he is unqualified because he is not a resident of Floresville. The charter requires us by section .302 and 303 to ensure that we are qualified to serve on the council. We also are required to be the judges of the qualifications of our own members. A district court judge agreed that what we did was proper. We did not spend unbudgeted funds as charged in the recall petition. The funds we spent came from the legal funds that are set aside for legal matters. We didn't spend any funds connected to infrastructure and public safety matters. These expenditures were not above and beyond the fiscal 2015 and 2016 budget. In conclusion, I have not violated the city charter and am innocent of the charges. That's it. Thank you.
It's pretty much the same. The whole basis of the recall petition was based on assumption that some expenses were made that were not budgeted. Let me point out that two of the people that were heading it, actually Mr. Rodriguez and John Guerrero, who's in the audience, were part of the council that approved the budget. We had so many meetings throughout the summer of budget hearings. There's a certain amount of money set aside for engineering, for professional fees, whatever it may be, but there's a legal budget, and I think at that time was $155,000, or pretty much close to that. The budget took effect October 1. The budget of legal expenses was approved in compliance with all charter requirements. As a result of our investigation or the expenditures that we approved, which again was part of the charter allowance for us to investigate and qualify our own members of the city council. There has not been anything that has been in disagreement with the city charter. We have not spent any unbudgeted money. Everything has been, like I said, in order with our city charter and laws of Texas, laws of the city of Floresville. Thank you.
Thank you. According to the petition for recall of Mayor Sherry L. Castillo et al. On the grounds of incompetence, misconduct, or malfeasance in office, I, Sherry L. Castillo, was specifically charged with the following: the authorization of expenditures above and beyond the approved fiscal year 2015-16 budget prior to public disclosure and approval of the City Council at the 7 p.m. November the 12th, 2015 regular council meeting. The continued authorization of expenditures not related to infrastructure or public safety above and beyond the approved 2015-16 budget. While not a charge per se, the petition postulates that these non-budgeted expenditures will continue to deplete the reserve funds established and required by the City of Floresville's insolvency plan and may negatively impact the financial stability and ability of the City of Floresville to fund much needed future infrastructure and public safety projects. While the charges do not meet the charter, Section 6.02 requirements of shall specify the grounds for the removal of the officer in plain and intelligible language and must cite the time and place of the occurrence of each act alleged as a ground for removal with enough certainty. I maintain that the charges are patently false. The only expenditures related to the petition charges are those incurred in the exercise of council's responsibility, Section 3.02 and 3.03, to ensure that each member of the City Council shall be a resident of the City of Floresville. These expenditures amounted to $17,000 plus to investigate the residency issue on Mr. Miller and approximately $38,000 for Mr. Miller's suit. Some would have us believe that this was unnecessary. I disagree. How can we protect the integrity of a representative form of government which is based on the requirement that the governor be from among the governed residents if we allow non-residents to freely participate? In carrying out this responsibility, the council found that Mr. Miller was unqualified because he was not a resident and had him removed from his seat. District Judge Peoples agreed with the council's decision. Hence, Mr. Miller's removal and holdover status. So in essence, if Mr. Miller had been forthright and abided by charter requirements, none of these expenditures would have
Point of order,
occurred.
Madam Mayor. The guidelines presided need to be specific on the charges. This is more of a rant against Jim Miller than it is addressing the charge.
Mr. Hug, these refer to
If,
the issue at
if
hand.
it can be limited to the specific expenditures that are resulting in the charter petition.
Thank you, I'll continue. More to the subject at hand, these expenditures were not above and beyond unbudgeted the fiscal year 2015-16 budget, nor do they have any relation to infrastructure or public safety matters, which I understand have their own separate funds. While these expenditures may not have been specifically foreseen, they were identified as legal expenses and assigned to the general fund under the subtitle Contractual Legal Fees. This fund has not been depleted. Also, I am not aware of any continued authorization of expenditures not related to infrastructure or public safety above and beyond the approved fiscal year 2015-16 budget. By the same token, no reserve funds have been allocated to their legal fund. So what are these continuing allegations based on? In conclusion, I have not violated the charter, the state, or national laws, nor the trust of my constituents. Thank you.
Thank you.
And does that conclude the statements?
It concludes mine.
Then at this time, I will open the floor for citizens' comments. If we can get a line set up, and remember, there's a 5-minute time.
And you do say this is just comment, not ask questions.
You can ask questions, but they are not able to respond at this time. Should they choose to at the closing, they can respond to questions.
Mr. Miller, my first question is going to be for you, and anybody on the council that will answer it. I just figure you're the person that will answer it.
Point of order, I'm not
You're not,
allowed
you can't
to-
answer, I understand.
allowed to answer or even provide comment at the end.
Okay. How much exactly is the city spent? My understanding is it's $57,000 approximately. Did you take bids on the attorney? Because my understanding is if you did not take bids on the attorney, then you actually in fact have violated your own ordinance that you guys put in place on how much you could spend, and also I think the law of Texas. If it was not necessary to have council approval on this money, on this attorney, why on November 11th, when Mayor Castillo was seated, did you actually do that? Why did you actually go back to the council and ask for approval to hire the attorneys? And that's really my questions I have for you guys. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I will not answer any questions.
No.
We've been told not to.
Okay.
Good evening, my name is Joyce Stinson. I have this very, very deep feeling that we're splitting hairs here. The budget for legal fees, when you set up the budget, it's based on anticipated things, recurring fees. Well, these fees that have been spent with the Rios Group were not in that original anticipation. So let's fast forward a little bit. This is February. We have several more months until the end of the budget year. What's the plan for when that line item is depleted? Where are you going to get the money? The fact still remains, someone of the three of you contracted with this legal firm. For whatever reason, and I'm not getting into as the why, but you did. You stepped out and contracted. It was not authorized and it was not approved by the council. But you all took the matter in your own hands and went ahead and did something, and then it was, whoops, wait a minute, we better get this approved. I think it's a lot of what you said. Maybe it's not illegal, but I think you're stretching it. And I think it's time that maybe you truly think about what's moral, honest, and ethical for the people of this city.
My name is DC Murphy, and I don't live in Floresville. I live in the county, but I spend my money in the city of Floresville. There is a rumor that has gone around for years, and I would like Daniel Tejeda to tell me the truth. When you were mayor, did you live in Bentwood?
Do I answer that now, Chris?
No, you cannot answer any questions.
Can you prove that you lived in the city of Floresville while you were mayor? Do you own property in the city of Floresville presently? That's it. I'd like answers.
I'm Steve Smith. I live in the city of Floresville. Since you councilmen are not going to answer any questions, I address this to Mr. Huggs. Mr. Huggs, you and I and a number of other people met today at 1:30 at a hearing before the judge. And when, after all the testimony was made, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not saying I'm really smart, but I thought that I understood that the judge said that if this council did not call a recall election by the 10th of March, that we were going back to court and he was going to order that. Did I misunderstand that question?
I can't answer questions at this time either. If you'd like, you can submit it.
Thank you very much.
My name is Nick Disson, I live in Floresville. I just like to know, did our city manager sign all the checks to the attorney?
You can't.
What'd you say?
And the city manager can't answer as well. This is a comment here.
Go ahead, Jim.
Obviously, there's not going to be any question and answer tonight, so we'll just talk. And I'll address this first sort of from the end going backwards.
Your name first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jim Lahan, and I live in the city. I look at this because there may or may not have been anything wrong done, but it certainly looks suspicious, and the looks of suspicion caused me to wonder. So I'll start with the January 7th council meeting where the special counsel, Mr. Garza, came in, and Mr. Garza very openly said that he was not contracted with prior to November 12th. You all are sitting here telling us that you had the right to do that, and you did it. And so I've got a lawyer and a client who are telling me different stories. When I've got a disagreement between those two, I've got a problem to start with. And then I go back and look at what happened. Someone met with the Rios firm and contracted somehow or the other with that firm. I haven't found anything in the city charter that says that members of the council can in fact engage anyone to spend any money. The council is responsible for doing the budget, but I didn't see the city manager involved. I didn't see a request for qualifications to get professional services. I didn't see anything that looked like an open, by the charter approach to acquire this engagement with the Rios firm. Also, I haven't seen anything in the charter that says it's okay for the city council to order a secret investigation of a private citizen. All of these things are the things that bother me, and the things why I'm standing here tonight. Thank you.
Evening. I'm Doug Jones, and I'm your president of your Floresville Parks Foundation. I'm schooled in aerial combat, and we have a term called chaff flare. Everything that y'all have done is chaff flare. Let's take you back to the 28th of September. You had an agenda item to evaluate the qualifications of a councilman. The target was a private citizen. He was not yet elected. 2 of your people walked out. You no longer had a quorum. You let it sit. The day before the election, somebody obligated this city with Rios for 2.8 hours. When Mr. Garza made his presentation, somebody asked, who did it? He said the city council. Immediately, Johnny Ray said it wasn't me. Chris Talamonte says it wasn't me, and Mr. Miller, then elected councilman, said, well, it certainly wasn't me. If y'all are so sure that your population will support you, why have you used chaff flare tactics instead of having honor to the people that actually came forward and said what you did was wrong? My dad taught me that should you ever get into public trust and you prostitute that trust, the only, and he repeated it, the only thing that an honorable person would do would be to resign. You ought to stand tall. The problem, you can solve the problem if you merely look in your mirror. Thank you.
I'm John Guerrero. My question is, who authorized the attorney to defend y'all today, and who's paying for it?
I'm Kurt Mullen, a businessman here in Floresville. I've resided in Floresville for a number of years. I don't currently reside in Floresville. I currently reside in Bentwood, your former residence.
Former residents, correct.
I didn't think you had to.
I just did.
Yeah, I thought he couldn't answer.
He can. For future, let's keep it.
And just for the record, I'm not addressing any of my comments to them because I don't think they deserve the right to respond. They are proving themselves. My comments are to the citizens here. These people, they clearly engaged the law firm outside of their boundaries as councilmen. Clearly. They did it without, they met together, they decided together, and they engaged a law firm. Don't think that some law firm in San Antonio was sitting there thinking, oh, I wonder what's going on in Floresville. Let me hire a private investigator and follow Mr. Miller and find out where he lives, what he's doing. Don't think that they did that. They did that because these councilmen met somewhere outside of these chambers.
Mr. Hug.
They went down to Whataburger, and they did that. I'm within my 5 minutes.
Yeah, if we can keep the audience.
They did that. So that's the issue here. You have councilmen that are operating unethical, behind the scenes. And if you think it doesn't affect you, maybe now it's working in your favor. But when it doesn't work the way you want, that's your fault. We have rules. Rules are here for everybody, and they're especially here for these people. That's why we put them there. Don't hide behind them because you're getting a little favor now. Because when the time comes later, when the wind's not going to blow in your favor, you're not going to have a leg to stand on. Because you supported them and you put them back in. A recall was signed by a number of petitioners. More petitioners than usually turn out to vote in this city. And that means because it's important. and they care about the sewers, and they care about how the money's being diverted, and they care about Mr. Miller, who has a business here and spends 12 hours a day down here, morning and night, and they're concerned about whether or not he sleeps there or sleeps in San Antonio. I don't really care. But the big thing is, they hired those lawyers. They met in private little session somewhere and made a decision and hired those lawyers and contracted an illegal violation of the Open Meetings Act. So you just take that to mind, people. It's not about whether you like Mr. Tejada or Mr. Ortiz or Ms. Castillo. It's not about that. It's about them operating within the rules that they have been set forth. They did not do that, and if you think they did, there's a special name for that, and I can't change that. Ignorance can be fixed. The other one can't.
I don't know that I can top Mr. Mullen. Somebody asked some questions about, I can't sit up there as a councilman and answer your questions, but I can sit down here.
Your name first?
I think I was identified at the beginning of the meeting as Councilman Jim Miller. But I'll repeat it here as Councilman Jim Miller. My name is Councilman Jim Miller. I was identified at the beginning of the meeting, and I'd like my time to restart. As a citizen, I'm entitled to speak here. As a councilman, I can answer some of your questions. One of the questions that was asked was who authorized the payments. All three payments to the law firm of Rios and Associates were authorized by Mayor Sherry L. Castillo, as is evidenced in the records that were requested by other members of the City Council and sent to all members of the City Council. And Mr. Mullen brings up a very, very valid point. The election to where I was elected was November 3rd. The attorney that somebody from the City Council met with for 2.8 hours was engaged on November 2nd. And met with again on November 8th or November 9th, I forget the dates. The private investigator that was retained by the law firm testified in court that they followed me beginning November 2nd through November 11th. I was not sworn into office until November 12th. Whether you believe that I'm a resident or not is not the issue.
Right.
Whether you believe I should be
Get to the point,
This was his comment.
on the council or not is not the issue. My name's not on the recall. I have been declared ineligible to serve in the seat by this council. We went to court. The judge said they had the authority to take that action. We could fight it in court. But in the interim, the judge said I was duly elected, duly sworn in, and that I am a council member in place 5 until a qualified replacement has been named. That was the ruling that came out of the court. We've seen $55,000 plus in legal expenses. This afternoon at about 5 o'clock, I withdrew my lawsuit against the city. I am still a holdover candidate and will be until May 7th election and the meeting after that. But the question in front of you is not Jim Miller. is it okay for a city council to authorize these kinds of expenditures, as Mr. Mullen said, against a citizen who wasn't even voted in, against a citizen of this community who was not even sworn in? And is it all right for this council to take those kinds of actions in secret? Yes, the city has a $155,000 legal budget that's designed for 12 months. The last I looked today is February 19th. 3 or 4 months, 5 months into the fiscal year. And we have spent almost $100,000 in legal fees, total, to include the city council. What are we going to do when that runs out? There's going to have to be a budget amendment that's going to come from the reserves. We all know the answers to that. But the question is, who met with this council? Who authorized it? And why did we have to do it behind closed doors? That's truly the question. Whether it be Jim Miller or you or you. That's really the question. And why are we hiding it? Thank you.
Are there any more citizen comments?
My name is Mary Helen Keegan. I am a resident of Floresville. I think one of the things that bothers me the most is the insincerity with which the three of you have looked back at all of us with absolutely no integrity towards our decisions. Those of us who've gone out and worked for those petitions and got the people to sign, if you had been there alongside us, you would have heard the comments and the concerns. This was not, it was not just an effort to disparage you. This was against what has been going on. And enough is enough. Respect what we have done. That's all we're asking, and I don't think you have done that. You have smirked. You have looked at us as though we didn't have a brain in our head, and all we're asking for is that same level of respect back. And it's time we get it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Then at this time, I'd like to turn the floor back over to the official subject to the recall petition to respond, if they so desire, to anything that we brought up out here.
My statement stands, Mr. Huck.
What'd she say?
If there's no other comment, then we should adjourn the public hearing.
Thank you.
I'll answer Ms. Murphy's question, Chris. Ms. Murphy?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I do own property in Floresville.
Where?
Well, that's up to you to look for.
Oh.
And, no, I did not live in Benwood while I was mayor. And the comments that Mr. Miller brings up, he says we have spent $100,000, but he fails to mention that 2 lawsuits have been filed on the city, to the city of Floresville. One of them directly by him, and the other one with this recall effort. All of that costs money. And if you notice, all of our efforts lately have just been recall, recall, recall. This man is making money.
So resign.
And let me tell you also, if I would have been approached with all the propaganda that the petition people were saying, I might have signed it myself. But most of the stuff was just that, propaganda.
No, it wasn't.
Mr. Tyler, that's my point about respecting what we do.
He's answering.
I've answered the question.
Ended the citizen comment.
Okay.
But you said it was adjourned.
Yeah.
I think you made us comment.
All right. You're gonna let us talk, let us talk.
Out of that $100,000 that's been spent, $17,000 was related to investigation. The rest has been involved with lawsuits initiated by Mr. Miller.
So do you do that to every person that runs that's not in the city limits? You investigate
yes.
everybody?
Yes, sir.
Council, we can't get back into Q&A.
Okay.
No Q&A, please. Meeting adjourned.
Meeting's adjourned.
This meeting is adjourned.
I told them to go in the bathroom.